Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I've got an exciting upload for you guys. A whole bunch of Dogman encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, I've got some links I'd like to share. The first link I'd like to share with you is Tromix Lead Delivery Systems, home of the original 458 SOCOM, owned by Tony Remore, a true American. He designed an AR upper to be attached to your existing AR lower and blast 458 instead of 223 or 556. He designed this for our troops in the Middle East to stop truck bombs. Straight across the board, a 458 is going to stop a truck. It's going to stop the Dogman. Tromix link is in the description below, and check out all his other amazing products. Now on to my links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypastas, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page a while back to help raise some money for urban exploration, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting videos that I'm going to be doing very shortly here. Now, that link is in the description as well if you'd like to help out with that. Now, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get on with these Dogman encounters. Shall we? Today's first Dogman encounter, March 30th, 2019, Rothrock State Forest, Pennsylvania. Three couples hiking in Rothrock State Forest, just outside of Pine Grove Mills, Pennsylvania, encountered a bipedal canine. The couples state that between 1 p.m. and 1:30 while hiking, a large wolf-like creature stepped out of the wooded area near a small clearing. The creature was staring at the group, and when a female member of the party started screaming, the creature took 2 or 3 steps towards the group, baring its teeth and growling. All witnesses agree it seemed the screaming definitely set it off to go to an aggressive movement in the direction of the group. The hikers left the area immediately, running for their lives as they put it to the investigators. The description of all members of the group state the creature was between 8 and 10 feet tall, large wolf head, yellow eyes, long muscular arms, massive body build, and strange-looking legs. Today's second encounter, October 9th, 1996. A man who will remain unnamed was 26 at the time and was on his way to meet a friend who lived on Underhill Road in southeast London. In order to walk there, he had to make a long trek heading southwest past Camberwell New Cemetery and then down the entire length of Brenchley Gardens and around Camberwell Old Cemetery. He decided to cut through the older cemetery to save 20 minutes of walking time, even though it was already dark and the idea of walking through a cemetery at night was freakishly scary to him. He said he normally rode his bicycle to his friend's house, but their plans for that evening precluded his usual means of transport. He didn't have a flashlight in the cemetery, he had no lighting system, so he could only see a few feet ahead of him as he made his way across the cemetery. He was well into the middle of the cemetery when movement of something very large and dark caught his eye. I swear I saw what I thought was a big dog, move very quickly. He stopped and squinted into the darkness, but decided his mind was playing tricks on him and started off again. He didn't get very far. It was then, in a flash, my life changed forever. It was so quick that I never had a chance. I thought that somebody had literally run into me and knocked me over. Something had grabbed me by my arm very tightly and smashed me to the ground. It was big, it was powerful, and it had extremely bad breath. This thing was now bearing down on me, looking directly at my face, dribbling onto me and growling. But it was the creature's next action that truly frightened him. It began to eagerly sniff his body up and down, exactly as a dog would do. I was convinced I was going to die. I'm afraid to say that, as brave as I think I might be, I was not. At this point, I shamefully soiled myself. As I lay there being smelled, I was waiting for the bite, but it never happened. Just as quick as it started, it was over, and the beast was gone and sprinting off into a flash. It sprinted away on its hind legs. Today's third encounter happened September 20th, 2018. I regularly walk a Yorkshire Terrier out in the forest. He's a rescue dog and doesn't like the other dogs, so I walk him alone and off the normal dog walking paths. He tries to fight any dog that he meets, so I have to keep him on a lead. He's totally fearless. It doesn't matter to him if it's a Rottie, Pit Bull, or German Shepherd. He will try to have a go despite his size. Owners of Yorkshire Terriers would no doubt agree. Anyway, I'm very familiar with the large local wildlife, fallow deer, roe deer, and of course, hundreds of wild boar now living there, which I see them regularly. The wild boar population in the Forest of Dean is becoming a pandemic problem. On this day, I was walking down the forest track about 2 miles out of Cinderford when unusually the dog started acting in a scared and nervous manner. He was cowering behind me, which has never happened before. I couldn't think of anything that would spook him this much, so I managed to get him to continue down the path for a little ways. Shortly after this, as I'm pulling the dog along, 3 wild boar crossed the path at a speed of 30 feet in front of us. But, as usual, the dog ignored them. It was something else that spooked him. I calmed him down and we slowed the pace and kept on with the walk, but several minutes later the dog started to become agitated again. Once again he refused to continue with the walk and he was trying to go back the way we had just came. I looked around to see what could be causing this reaction, and I saw a face looking back at me about 100 yards away in the woods. It was just looking at me and the dog. It didn't move. The ferns that this creature was standing in are 4 to 5 feet tall. It looked like it was standing hunched over. I'm one of those people that talk to animals. I say hello to deer, boar, even squirrels, when I see them as I walk. When I first saw the face looking at me, I said aloud, "I can see you." I even waved at it, thinking it must be a deer or a boar. It was after looking at the face for a while that I realized it was not. I think it was watching or stalking the boar that I had seen minutes before, and the face, when I saw it, was down in the ferns. I think I might have blown its cover. That's why it raised itself out of the ferns. I've never felt threatened while walking the path. In fact, it's my favorite of mine due to the wildlife I encounter. Although lately the wildlife seems to have left the area. I do tend to talk aloud on the path if there is no one around, saying, "Just passing through, don't mean you any harm." I have not changed my routine and I still walk the path both alone and with the dog, but I do get eerie feelings of being watched sometimes. The path is only a 1/4 mile from the popular sculpture trail, which attracts thousands of visitors every year. If anything, I feel privileged to have seen it, and I've never heard of any other similar sightings that it could be. The usual big cat sightings are reported, and I've seen one myself along with the occasional sheep kill. But I couldn't explain what kind of creature it was, other than to say it was hair-covered, huge, and looked like a canine. Our fourth and final encounter. This encounter is a little strange. I'm including it because there's been one other encounter that I've read with a dog man wearing clothes, which then brings it back to shapeshifter, werewolf, whatever. But like I said, I found this very interesting, and it's definitely creepy, and that's why I'm sharing it. When I was a little girl, my grandfather lived in an old farmhouse in the upper end of Cleveland County, North Carolina. We used to go and visit him every Saturday. My dad, my mom, my baby brother, and I, along with several of my dad's brothers and sisters and their assorted children, would congregate after lunch at Grandpa's. Us cousins would play together outside and out in the woods, which ran behind my grandpa's farm and stretched probably 10 miles to a dirt road, beyond which was an apple orchard and a cow pasture. This was the early 80s in a rural area, back when kids could take off to the woods for hours, and it was okay. We would all have dinner together and then hang out until bedtime for us kids, when we would all head home. At that time, I had just turned 8, my cousin Jay was 6, my brother and Jay's sisters were both toddlers, barely walking. The night in question, Jay and I and our little siblings were the only kids present at Grandpa's. He and I had spent the day playing in the woods as usual, and out in the yard where Jay was trying out his prized brand new skateboard. After supper, we hung out in the back bedroom watching TV until our parents informed us it was time to go. Grandpa's house has a glassed-in porch, which also served as a laundry room on the front. Right outside of the kitchen, this porch, because the way the lot was laid out and the house was built, is fairly tall, and looking out the windows gave you a panoramic and slightly elevated view of the backyard. I would speculate the porch windows were about 20 feet off the ground and the backyard sloped away from the porch. The backyard is lit by 2 large lights, one which is mounted on the pole to the left of the yard, the other mounted on the side of Grandpa's shop, which was to the right. They were very bright and each lit up a fairly large area. The only really shadowy part of the backyard was the area where a large tree stood, casting a shadow that fell between the shop and the greenhouse, which was far left of the yard. It was under this tree that Jay and I had left the skateboard when we stopped playing to eat supper, and he and I decided we'll go get it while our parents are still saying their goodbyes in the kitchen. The wolfman was in the backyard. We saw him at the same time as soon as we entered the porch. He was man-sized. He looked exactly like a werewolf from a bad B movie. He had shaggy, dark brown werewolf head with long pointed ears and a lighter brown muzzle. His hands were human-like as best as I can remember, though they were covered in dark fur, and he had long claws. He was wearing a red and black checkered flannel shirt and blue jeans. I don't remember anything about his feet, whether he had shoes or claws, but his legs were straight, like a person's, not bent backwards like a dog. He was walking back and forth in the yard, almost robot-like, or as if it was on a track. I can really describe it well. It was like his legs were moving a little, but not enough to actually count as walking. It was more like he was gliding, but in a jerky way. His body was human in proportion. He would move from the edge of the light near the greenhouse across to the light near the shop, stopping only when he reached the end of the illuminated area and turning around in a strange, jerky way and gliding back. His eyes were red and glowed some, like the ones of those laser lights that you tease your cat with. That color and about that level of brightness. The only time he was out of our sight was when he passed into the shadowed area of the tree. He seemed to be showing off for us, wanting us to see him, or at least that's what it felt like. The feeling that he carried with him was an overwhelming malevolence. I felt like he knew we were there and he could see us watching him and feel that we were afraid and he was glad. Not sure if that makes sense, but it's how I felt at the time. Dread and fear, and like he was aware of us and doing what he was doing on purpose to scare us. Of course, we freaked out and started screaming for our parents. And of course, once they all rushed out onto the porch only to hear us hysterically because of a werewolf in the backyard. They said the usual parent thing about an overactive imagination and too much Scooby-Doo. Because even though he was there walking back and forth right in front of them, and we could both see him, none of the adults present could. I remember pointing and saying, "It's out there," and being really frustrated because they couldn't see it. Finally, my dad, determined to put an end to the nonsense, announced that he was going out to the yard and getting Jay's skateboard under the tree. We tried to stop him, but he went anyway. At that time, the wolfman was still doing his strange gliding walk back and forth when my dad opened the porch door and hit the steps that lead from the porch to the yard. He triggered a motion sensor light, which was on the corner of the porch awning, lighting up the shadowed tree area. Just before this happened, the wolfman had stepped into the shadowy area and disappeared from view into the dark. When the light came on, lighting up the tree area, the wolfman was just gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, as they say. We never saw him again, though we became mildly obsessed with werewolves for a while after that and started hoarding silver in case we needed to make silver bullets. When you're a child, it's pretty amazing what you consider normal. We were scared at that time when it happened, but it's like afterwards it didn't feel completely real because it was so bizarre and we sort of made a game out of it. A few weird things happened to us in the woods after that, but nothing could be considered paranormal beyond a doubt, and nothing like seeing the wolfman. Years passed, but I always wondered about what we saw that night. My cousin Jay forgot about it altogether. I asked him about it just a few months ago, and he didn't remember it at all. What really brought it together in memory for me was a story about a real wolfman, about a girl who saw the hitchhiking werewolf wearing clothes. Before that, I had never seen a serious report or canine lupin human wearing clothes in any publication. I often don't tell anyone about the wolfman we saw because it sounds completely crazy. Of course, my parents and Jay's parents never for 1 second believed we saw anything. I don't know a lot about the history of the land around my grandfather's. I know there's a lot of Cabawaba Indians in that area before colonial times, and that there are several strange formations in that part of the county that people claim are Indian mounds, though none of them seem to be officially recognized as such. There have been several Bigfoot flaps in the county as well, and there are black panthers there. I've seen both black and tan panthers, as has my father and many hunters he knows, though they are not, in my opinion, anything supernatural, just regular animals. I have no idea to this day what it was that I saw in the backyard, and I find it hard to believe that it was an actual werewolf. But I feel like it was something paranormal. Seeing it has caused me a lifelong interest in cryptozoology. I thought a lot about it, and I sort of feel like maybe something wanted to be scary and knew the stereotypical werewolf would frighten kids. I've even wondered if it could be someone dressed in a costume playing a prank, but that wouldn't explain the weird gliding, unnatural way it moved, or the way it was able to disappear so fast, or the fact that apparently 5 adults couldn't see it, even though 2 kids could. Wow, some pretty crazy stuff there. Like I said, I shared that one with you guys because the couple of instances people have claimed to see a dog man wearing clothes, whether it be a shapeshifter or what. Definitely an interesting encounter, and the person has put a lot of thought into what it could be. How about the 2 in England? I mean, they were amazing. The guy walking in the path and saying hi to everything, and there be this dog man. You know, I am more amazed every day that I hear these things. They just are starting to be an obsession now for me. It's all I think about now. and all I read about and try to put together. I sometimes sit with the encounters in front of me and try to put puzzle pieces where they should fit. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these, and I'd love to hear your comments on all of the encounters that I shared today. With that, guys, I bid you farewell.